What's up, beautiful people? Afro Millennial Mama here. I just decided to make this video a random thought that I have occurring every so often, and I decided to share with you guys. So let me know what you think in the comments. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so today's topic, isn't the sun gorgeous today? I just decided to sit in my window and get some of those UV rays. But today's video, I wanted to talk about a couple of things. It's kind of complex. So I, especially as a parent, am trying to be the best example for my child when it comes to how I operate in this world, how I treat others, how I regard others, so forth and so on. Being in an intercultural relationship has opened my eyes to a lot of the ways that in the country that I live, the United States, we regard other people based on how they look, their phenotype, if you will, their racial, quote unquote, racial makeup. And, raising a child, you really have to check yourself my child is 4, and anybody with light skin, she calls white because their skin color is white, whether they're of African descent or not. And so I have to be very careful with my words. And so in re-examining how I would like to educate her, I'm re-educating myself. And I recently, not so long ago, did analysis of my DNA. I did both the Ancestry.com and AfricanAncestry.com. And with the Ancestry.com, it breaks down your percentage of whatever ethnicity you are, which I feel like we should be using the word ethnicity more so than race, because race is something that people just made up that has nothing to do with nothing, in my opinion. I think the ethnicity, because it involves the culture and it also includes, genetic makeup and DNA, which is important. I just think that how someone looks, especially in the United States, I don't know about other places, but when we say race, other places may say race and they mean country. But when we say race, we're just talking about someone's phenotype and how they look. But how they look doesn't necessarily tell you their true genetic makeup, nor does it tell you what their culture is. And those are things that I want to educate my daughter on. Her father and I are both of African descent. However, we have different cultures, and that's what I want her to be more focused on. So in that light, I decided to identify myself as I have been. I've accepted what the genetics say, and I am 91% African, from different parts of Africa, mostly from the western regions of Africa. And I am also 9% European, mostly from Great Britain. And so because I am part European, and I can see it in my daughter, like her phenotype appears to be more African than mine. So, I can't deny, like, my hair texture is different than hers. She has her father's hair texture. I guess people would call it, like 4C or 4D. I don't know. Anyway, but that's not my hair texture. And so I have to acknowledge the genetic makeup. And what I've noticed is that a lot of my friends did the same DNA test, and actually 91% African is a pretty big deal. when it comes down to it, because of the history of this country and slavery. And I just feel like when we decide to acknowledge who we are, like there's European people out there who look European to us, but to the naked eye, but they might be 20% African descent or 20% Asian descent, and we're choosing to disregard that because, you know, when you describe somebody, they say, oh, what do they look like? Are they white? Are they black? And it's like, I don't know. We're more than that. I feel like we shouldn't be describing people based on what quote unquote race they are. What do they look like? Do they have straight hair, curly hair, dark hair, kinky hair, brown skin, light skin, thin skin, pink skin, whatever? And it should be more descriptive and not just so superficial, in my opinion. I don't want my child to be looking at people and say, oh, this person's white, this person's black. I want her to say, that's my friend, he's from Jamaica, or that's my friend, she's from Poland. I don't know, you know. And so I think that should be a part of our education system. I also believe that in accepting our Europeanness or whiteness, if you want to call it that, we acknowledge the fact that we're not perfect. A lot of times we're looking at ourselves as former victims or even current victims of racism, slavery, and the transatlantic slave trade. We try to point fingers at other people when in actuality, most of the Caucasian people in this country probably don't have any ties to slavery. However, those of us, like I have friends who are 20% European or 20% British and they're 70% black or 70% African. Like, we're the ones whose ancestors were slave owners, if you want to be real with it. Like, there are Caucasian people who are 15% African descent walking around not even knowing who they are, just because somebody was passing back in the day and decided to continue to mix with other Europeans to kind of have a better life and drown out the Africanness in them. And so they keep their blackness a secret, you know, down the family line or what have you. But it's like we're related to each other, especially if you're in the US. Like, we've been here just as long as anybody else, like been here 400 plus years. So I think that when we talk about certain things like history, racism, we have to acknowledge our great-great-grandfathers or great-great-great-grandfathers were the ones raping people, raping enslaved Africans, or forcibly having relationships, whatever you want to call them, if they were somewhat consensual. But for the most part, those were our savage ancestors that did that. So we can't just look at, and I'm guilty of doing that before, you know, like the white people were the ones who did yada, yada, yada. But we have that blood in us and we have to acknowledge it. And when we do, for me, I find it empowering. I get into a lot of little arguments or conversations, debates, if you will, with people out there in the internet, outer space. And a lot of times I find it empowering when I say we have a problem of such and such and such, rather than pointing the finger at that particular person just because of their blonde hair or whatever, when I have no idea where their ancestors came from or what they were involved with. They may have been German, they may have been what's another one that's common? I forget the country. There were slave catchers. A lot of them are police officers now. I don't want to say Poland. That's not correct. It'll come to me. But anyway, there's a lot of different cultures of people. Irish is what I was thinking of. And there's a lot of people who didn't own slaves. Like, a lot of Irish people didn't own slaves. Some may have, but it's not as many as the British or the French or the Spanish, And so I think we just have to, this country does a good job of miseducating us and keeping us in the dark about things. And I just feel like race is one of those issues that definitely needs to be delved into more, because it's just what you look like. And that is the most idiotic thing that I've ever heard of. And I know for self-preservation purposes, we do look at people and try to protect ourselves in certain environments based on what people, appear to be, which is fine. That's, instinct. I see somebody who looks like they're Caucasian in a certain environment, that could be detrimental to my health, my safety, so forth. So I'm not saying ignore what you see. Just be careful on how you respond to it and what words you use, because we're educating the next generation, and how we educate them determines how we move forward. I don't want my child to go forward not knowing that there's a difference between Scottish and British and Irish and Polish and Italian. Like, it's not all the same, just like Jamaican and Cuban and Brazilian and Panamanian is not all the same, or Nigerian, or even Yoruba and Igbo. Like, I think those things are most important. And yeah, it's more complex to learn about it, but I think that we should. I think that we should accept the fact that we are all, most of us that I'm talking to, if you're from the US, we're all part white. And I would even put it on documents. Like, you fill out applications for stuff, I'm putting it because it's in my DNA. And it shouldn't matter to the point where, yes, if you have some African ancestry, there are disadvantages, and there are programs that are in place to alleviate that and try to rectify it. So don't not acknowledge that you're Black, of course, but we should always, I think it's an empowering thing, and it's also a disarming thing. If you go up to a Caucasian person, or not even go up to, but you're talking to one, and you let them know I'm part British, like, it just trips people out in their mind, because they're like looking at you thinking, but how? And I think that's what we need more of. Education, period. And education in the real sense of history and what really matters. And I think race is stupid, and whoever made it up was an idiot, but they did something that has affected the world for centuries, and it's about time that we undo it. So embrace who you are, all of who you are. It shouldn't ever be, if you're Chinese and Black, or you're this and Black, that you're just Black. No, your heritage is what your heritage is. Even if one side of your heritage doesn't even claim you, or they don't like you, that's still a part of who you are. Like, we can't just be always the victim of everybody else's brutality or racism or whatever. We're a part of that. And when we show people how to be, and we are that example for those other groups of people, they'll look to us and they'll see, look how they did it. Look how they have the same ancestry as us, and they're not running around killing people, or doing whatever nonsense is going on. And I think those of us of African descent are able to change the world, and we can make that shift. Anyway, those are just some random thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments below. This is Afro Millennial Mama. Like, share, subscribe. I love you guys, Black people. We the realest, we the baddest, we the dopest, we the smartest, we the flyest. I love y'all to the moon and back. Peace out.